Roll call, please.
Kibler. Maxwell. Quisenberry.
Here.
Rosales. Schwartz. Hartke. James. Quorum is present.
I thought I could carry, but okay. Any opposed? None. Motion is approved. Public participation. Going once, out of here. No public participation. Communications. Anybody have any communications? Alan?
Nope.
Deb? Beth?
I have a communication question.
Microphone.
Did we agree on a time to meet with the, with ILPP?
Yes, everyone I heard back from was okay, so that will be at 5:30 on Wednesday, February 20th. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so moving right along, we've got capital improvement projections that Alan has put together, so I'll let Alan speak to all that.
Thank you. On page 7 is a capital improvement projections just for the roofing. This is close to what was presented to the Facilities Committee of the whole 2 years ago. It is updated. I did update it to today's date, and I have added other buildings that were never on the original one that were submitted. Now, this is a prototype. I brought this to the committee so everyone could take a look at it and understand the information I've compiled, so we can discuss different options we have as we move forward to our program. If you'll look, basically we took the building, the description, a basic description of the roof type, the year it was installed, the existing warranty when it was installed, and the original installation cost, and a projected replacement date. Now, on the projected replacement date, I extended it as far out as possible. As you can see, if you look at the very top, the existing courthouse at 101 East Main, it came with a 30-year shingle-only guarantee, and I extended that replacement date out for the full 30 years to 2039. Now, that may be too much on some instances, and it may not, but that's the starting point I used. And I try to use the same basic formula throughout from top to bottom. There are some italicized and underlined numbers in here. If you look down to the Brookins Pod 200, you'll see a $75,000 installation cost. That is an estimate on my part. That is not a hard number that was actually pulled out of our records. That was based on the cost per square foot of the other adjoining roofs, and just extended that out to the 20 years of 2015. The estimated replacement cost came by, I created that simply by compounding a 3% annual increase over the life expectancy, and that is the estimated replacement cost. Maybe that is the correct formula to use, maybe it's not. Those are just what we put in there to start with. If, for instance, roofing is an oil product, everyone knows that the oil prices have been fluctuating. Another war may change everything completely again. There may be a new product in 10 years that may make oil asphalt obsolete. We just don't know that. So with that information, I just kind of want everyone to take a look at it and understand that this is, roofing was simple. Simple because these are hard numbers and exact dates that we had in our office. Typically, when we put a building together, the roofing was bid separately, so that was an easy item to pull out of our historical documents. As we go through into parking lots, if we go into boilers, chillers, major equipment, those numbers are not readily available as an individual item. We will have to pull them out of a project somehow, or we'll have to create a number based on anticipated the market when we do it. And the technology nowadays is going to really affect how that number is put together. As a boiler was built back in, say, 1980, it was a pretty simple machine. Basic components that are pretty industry standard. Today's industry, we have all types of, even on boilers, digital controls. You know, we have, who knows, smart boilers that are interfaced into the building automation system. All that, you know, we'll have to take into consideration at the time whenever we decide to put a project out for bidding. So I'm sure you've all kind of looked it over a little bit, so if there are any questions or any suggestions, and remember, this is a footprint of how we, or blueprint, how we can go ahead and build our entire capital improvement program.
I guess, if I may, and then I'll take some questions. I would just emphasize what Alan said. When you're dealing with roofing, there's so many factors that come into play, and this was his best estimate, and we did talk about it. But you got to remember, in this type of the world, country, we do have winters. Some are good, some are bad. You have lots of winds. So when you're talking a 30-year roof, even though they warranty the roof shingle for that, that doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get 30 years out of it. I've told Alan that I've had roofs that had 30-year or 25-year warranty, and I was lucky to get 17. You're dealing with a lot of abrasion, the sun. You're dealing with acid rain. You know, believe it or not, we get it, and it deteriorates stuff. So, and then you have nails that pop out of your decking from underneath that cause some issues. So Alan's aware of that. He just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that these are bills that are going to be coming due, and as close as he could get them to the numbers, he tried his best. And I'll have to say again, just like yesterday, gas was $3.44 in my town. I woke up this morning, it was $3.79, and I'm sure my neighbors didn't appreciate me getting in their driveway. But anyway, with that said, I think that he gave us some figures, and I was crunching some numbers as he was talking here, and if you look at the next 4 to 5 years, just on the ones he's marked, and you can go through them and pick them out by year, we're looking at over $1 million plus just in money that we're going to need in the next 4 to 5 years just for roofs. And that's a serious issue in my book, because without a roof that's lasting, you're going to get leaks, you're going to get other problems within our buildings that no matter how much energy we try to save, that roof's going to cause a lot of damage in the long run. So we need to really look at that. We need to start setting aside some money, and I think Deb and Alan have come up with a funding model, which he's going to talk about next.
I'll refer that to Deb.
Okay. So with that, I've labored on. Jeff?
Firstly, I move to accept and place on file.
Well, it's just
I have a question
discussion.
before we
We're
do
in-
that.
Is it? Others discussed it. Okay.
My question is,
Mr. Rosales.
aren't shingles like 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, 30 years? And aren't contractors supposed to guarantee the warranty of those shingles? So if they're 30-year shingles, they're supposed to last 30 years, not 17 or 15.
You're partially correct. The contractors that install the roofing typically guarantee installation of materials as a total for 1 year. The roofing manufacturer of the component, whether it be shingles, EPDM, or rubber, they will issue a roof warranty of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and the quality of the material you put on is typically relevant to the length of the warranty you get. But that warranty is also prorated yearly. So in the first year, if the entire system fails, you'll get full 100% reimbursement or close to it. If it fails in the 29th year, they're going to prorate 29 years out of that 30-year warranty, and you'll get a small stipping back.
So what kind of material are we putting on these roofs? We putting on 20, 30, 10, or 15?
I'm sorry, that is In the middle column, the existing warranty period and life expectancy on the report shows you the information I found on each one. 30 years on some, 10 years on others. Some of them were a roofing system limited, which means they warranted the membrane, but not the associated flashings. Others are a total roofing system. So it's a hodgepodge of different warranties, but whatever the county thinks it can afford, whether it can afford a 10, 15, or 20, or 30-year, that's what we write the specifications for at the time. And then that's what, of course, the 30-year warranty typically will cost more than a 20-year warranty. I mean, that's the
Is there a basic standard, like American standard roofing that is not the high end, but not the low end, but is the mid-range end that, according to, county buildings, we should be putting on there? We should not be putting on the cheapest one that would be up for repair again and having to pay for labor all over again. Or it shouldn't be the most expensive one either, because maybe the constraints, budgetary constraints of the county doesn't allow us to put, the real thick stuff versus the medium stuff. Is there a standard that we usually apply to across the board to all buildings so that we won't have to be changing roofs every 15 years or 10 years or?
I guess if I may, Geraldo, in the business I am in, when I've spec'd out either high-rises, flat roofs, rubber membranes, or what have you, the contractor, like he just said, is only liable for a year. You can spec a 30 to a 50-year. The standard is normally, in this day and age, 30 years. Metal roofing has got a 50-year lifespan. They even have some asphalt shingles. But it isn't necessarily, in our case, like if you're going over an old building, the manufacturer of the shingles can come back and say, well, did you have your decking done? Well, if you didn't have your decking done, they're going to say that's your problem. Our warranty's null and void. I mean, it's like buying a car. Your tires, they're a 60,000-mile tire, but how many of us get 60,000 miles out of it? And the other little niche there is when I've dealt with some roofing companies and asphalt shingle companies, guess what? Someone else buys them out. Your warranty is about as good as the paper it's written on. I mean, warranties are fine in one way, and yes, there should be a standard, but it doesn't always mean you're going to get your buck back if that's what you're looking for. And the standard, like I just said, is 30 to 50 years in today's market.
So
Now,
what's-
membrane roofs, that's an animal within itself, if I may, and I know when we put some on some buildings, depending on who does it, they stretch that material out now, and I know on some, they'll only warranty them maybe for 5 years, maybe. And that's because with the sun, the weather, there's upkeep, and if you got people walking on them, your warranty's almost null and void at that point. So there's just a host of issues. So to answer your question, you may wish you got 30 years out of them shingles, but if you get 17 or 18, depending on the weather, you're doing good.
But there's no set standard, right, that we should?
Well, that's
go
what you
with?
spec. I mean, that's what they ask for, and on the shingles, on the packages, if you read them, they'll tell you that they're warranted for that. But that's because they're tested, and they're supposed to last that long, but there's a lot of factors that come into play, a lot of factors. We get a lot of wind here.
Do we,
lot of
do,
wind.
do we normally rip out the old shingles or do we just put it on top of the old shingles so that it could be a little heavier, a little bit more durable? Because sometimes in order to do a roof and do it correctly, it's like you said, which is totally rip out down to the wood, replace some of the bad spots of the wood and then put 30-year shingles and paper, heavier paper, so that it would be a lot more durable than taking an old roof that has a warranty of 15 years on a shingle and then applying a 30-year over that 15-year. And I believe you could go 2 or 3 layers before you need to rip out and start all over again, correct?
That is correct, but that's typically for a residential application. Historically, for Champaign County, we have never done a re-roof over an existing one, unless it was just for a temporary repair to hold the roof together until we were ready to do a full bid. We have always, every roof I've been associated with since I've been employed at the county, we have completely torn off the existing down to the metal structure or the wood structure and started back up again.
And put rubber?
Well, On flat roofs, which we have a lot of, typically we have used EPDM, which is the rubber. And there are now different variations of rubber. Some are white, a TPO, and then we've had other types in the past which have not always turned out to be the best decision on our part. But the shingles need to be used on a slope greater than a 312 pitch. And the rubber just too hard to apply. So on this particular building, it is all EPDM rubber, which is flat. On the sides of the courthouse, we have shingles. On the very top of the courthouse, we have a EPDM flat rubber roof. On the Ilias building, it's a pitched roof, and those are all 30-year shingles, 35-year shingles. So typically, our buildings have flat roofs, and we are putting a rubber roof on them.
So we put a rubber roof on the downtown jail roof, right?
That is correct.
The recent one we did, okay. Well, thank you.
And Geraldo, one last thing, with shingles, most manufacturers of them, right on the bag, it'll tell you if you go over existing shingles, your warranty's almost null and void from that point on, because they won't guarantee them, they won't. And then the rubber roofs, we did one at a high-rise, and I went up there on a real hot summer day, and it was like bubbling crude oil just coming up in spots. That stuff was just bubbling up. I wanted to punch it, but I was told not to. Any other questions? Wait a minute, Mr. Hartke.
Here we go again. I wanted to ask if we've ever looked at green roofing as a solution for some of our flat roofs. I happen to have worked at the Civil Engineering Department at the U of I, and one of the environmental engineers there is very cutting edge on that. I know the city of Chicago is really expanding its green roofing. It not only helps with insulation and lifetime because it grows itself to some extent, it also helps with remediation of water. I know there's been flooding issues out with this building in certain county buildings where we don't we just don't have the ground space to soak up the water. That's something that helps to solve that. It's good. It keeps it warm in the winter and cold in the summer. And it remediates carbon, which I know is another big word that some people don't believe, but it's an important word to me. Have we looked into this?
We have looked at it. I have looked at it through our department, but it has never been specified for any of our roofs so far.
Okay. That's certainly something, I have some connections. I'll be trying to bring that to the table.
Josh, excuse me, can
yeah.
you give me an example? Are you talking metal? Or
No, what I'm talking about is actual green roofing, where they plant sedum on a roof. It's a non-permeable layer, like a rubberized layer, and then you have a second semi-permeable layer that then you actually put down a growing medium, and then you plant sedum, which is a form like juniper that's going to grow and basically come over the sides of the building a little bit, but basically where on top of a flat building you have gravel and rock collecting heat. This is going to be basically a greenscape of sedum plants is the most common, but I know that some of the things in Chicago, they have rooftop gardens and things like that, and I'm not going that crazy, but I think that the sedum
write that
is
down.
certainly something to look at. And, other things along the lines, but more like what you're talking, like white shingling and things like that that are more reflective. And golly gee, I'd even like to look at solar panels, but I know that's crazy. So, but I think that the green roofing, it's something I've personally been involved in, and I'd really like to bring it to attention of our hopefully up-and-coming energy efficiency study session.
Well, is there any way, and I'll just ask this, that you could get us some examples and probably some
I
cost
will.
comparisons?
I
That
can-
would be helpful.
Yeah, I can get some things and I will bring it. I think I should have gone through my old files before I came here this evening, but I know I have some, I'll have to see. I know that they've changed deans at civil engineering since I was there, but I will try to re-engine it.
And I
make that
know in
connection.
Rantoul, I've got a lot of friends that have their gutters full of stuff growing out. I'm gonna tell
Oh,
them
well,
to keep on that. Go ahead.
I'm pretty sure that's not the green roof that
No.
we're talking
Right,
about,
the same
but
thing, yes.
there are quite a few of those in Urbana, too. I think if you look at the archives of the News Gazette, in the last month or so, there was an article about how they've retrofitted the iHotel's flat roof as a green roof, and they did that by bringing flats of sedum and placing them on the roof, and so it was I don't know if it was a low-cost way of doing it, but it was a way of doing it without having to do it from the beginning. They chose not to do it at the beginning but they went back and did this. So we could take a look at that. We could call over to the iHotel and see how much it costs. And for some of these locations where we have flat roofs that are, not going to be touched for 10 or 15 years, we could look at that, whether that was a viable option.
Well, thanks for that, but I would say on that too, what'd be nice since it was just done, and since we're not needing anything right away in the next year or so, unless there's an emergency, that might be something we watch, get some information on it, and see what problems develop and what the
Right.
cost is, because, the thing we gotta remember, this is taxpayers' funds. We don't wanna go overboard. We wanna be reasonable and use what I would guess is the industry standards for now, but if this is viable and the cost is within reach, if you're talking a few thousand, but if you're talking 50,000 more, that's something we gotta really be cognizant of. Anything else, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, it could prolong the length of life of the roof for rubber roofs because the plants take on a lot of the wear and tear from the sun. In fact, they're converting it into energy. So the rubber roof is under a protective layer of green. So if we put off a rubber roof being replaced for an additional 5 to 10 years, I mean, that's direct money back into the pockets of the taxpayers. And of course, if it benefits us from an insulation standpoint, that's a weekly, monthly set of money we can save. So we totally need to look at what the iHotel has done, but I suspect that it's not going to be so pricey that we're going to run away from it, once we see it. And we should, they're doing it one way. We could try some other ways and, increase the knowledge of what works in central Illinois by trying it with a few of our different buildings.
If I may continue on that's one of the things the university environmental engineering department's really big on around here, and I know that they would certainly be willing to do specs for a county building for free, and there's points at which they're just looking for places, because you're right, this is new technology, and they need studies and data points and things like that. So they are looking for counties that are willing to invest in things like this and help them out, and they'll help us out in the investment in it. So it's something I definitely want us to be able to look at.
Any other questions? Mr. Kibler?
Just to confirm, at this point, we have a $0 fund, if we have a fund at all, for any capital improvements specific.
Ms. Busey?
I assume the answer.
We do have a capital asset facilities fund right now, and I think that with the recent projects that were done on the Downtown Correctional Center from that fund, that fund balance is down in the $60,000 to $80,000 range.
Mr. McGuire?
I used to work for Bash Pepper Roofing, and we did build up roofs, which is the type of roof that you're talking about, the rubber roofs and those sorts of things. While I'm not against the type of roof that you're discussing that FNS put on the iHotel, anytime you put something on a rubber roof and you take the risk of puncturing that roof, you've got a problem with a leak. They don't always put rock on build-up roofs. Sometimes they glue them down. The additional cost is an additional cost, and that was really the point I was going to go to in the question. And you're looking at roofing and putting them on a cycle and having the money to fix these roofs, which I think is very important to do. And you're right, people get really upset when it's raining on top of them, but they also get upset when the furnace quits working, and we're going to discuss those. I mean, we have to do the whole building, I think, and we're talking about repairs and replacements. Maintenance, of course, or something that we need to hopefully build into a plan to take care of the buildings. I know that's something you want to do. I know that's something the county needs to do for their buildings. This is probably just a start, but hopefully we have a balance beyond just the roofs is the point, and which we have limited money, right?
Yeah, I guess our intent here was we're gonna start here. We're very well of the other issues, and Alan is, but like everything else, you gotta start at the top and start working down. Unlike life where you start at the bottom and work up. Rosales?
I just had more of a procedural thing, parliamentarian or just a point of order. We do have public participation. That was number 5, correct?
And I did call for it. You weren't in the door yet.
Well, listen to my question. My question is, are we going to have public participation throughout the agenda? Is that feasible, or do we have it just once at the beginning and then no other public participation until we carry our total agenda? I was just questioning because last meeting and this meeting, there was other county board members present giving good opinions and solid opinions. I don't mind it, but I was just asking as a point of order, do we have public participation and only allow public participation at that time, or do we allow it to public to discuss every point that we're discussing? Because I believe in some of our COW meetings, we don't allow that to occur. We don't allow to answer and respond to some of the points being brought up to the table. So I was just questioning as a matter of procedure.
Well, I guess the matter of procedure would be whoever's chairing the committee. If there's public here that has put in a request and they want to speak, and as we go on through the meeting, I may or may not recognize them because I don't want to prolong the meeting just to hear, the same old thing 100 times. I'm going to say it like it is. And we are the committee, and other members that are here that are not on this committee, I will recognize after the committee members have spoken. Mr. Quisenberry.
I'm going to let Deb comment after I'm done, but by definition, I don't think board members are public participation because board members cannot, by rule, participate in public participation. It's against our rules. So I'll let Deb comment on the participation of other board members at committee meetings because I think that's been a historical thing that some of us haven't seen because we didn't have committees when we got here.
Under the standing committees, which is this structure right here, county board members who attend the meetings have always been allowed to participate in the discussion. Typically, the board chair, the committee chair, will recognize the members of the committee first. But when other members of the board who are present have comments, they certainly are allowed to share them under the county board rules. And the public participation question, you would have to waive the board rules to engage with the public after the public participation portion of the agenda has been closed.
But those county board members that are present just don't have a vote on any issue.
They don't get to vote, but they are allowed to engage in
comment
the
on any
discussion.
topic at any time throughout
Whenever
the
recognized
agenda.
by the chair, right?
Okay, that's plain and clear. That's all I was asking.
And
Thank you.
Rosales, I thought when you were asking that question, because we do allow that, historically have allowed it. I think you were on some committees before where others join in and we used to sit in or sit in the audience, but you cannot be part of the public and sign a statement and come up here. But what I meant is if there happened to be someone here that Alan has asked to be here and is knowledgeable on roofing, and they're done, but other questions come up, I would recognize them, but of course, we'd have to raise the vote to have the rule suspended. Raise the roof, you're absolutely right.
Well, thank you for
But,
the clarification.
that's where I was going, but Deb said it quite well. So any other questions?
I've been informed.
Anybody else? Oh, Patsy?
Yes, I'd like to build on the comments concerning looking at some green alternatives for the roofs, not to repeat what they said, just to add to it. First of all, there are now 7 examples in the community of green roofs, so we have plenty of possibilities here, and they're in various forms. It has evolved to this point in time where a green roof can be put on the present supports of a roof. It doesn't have to be reinforced. That was in the early days. Things have evolved, and they will probably keep evolving. So I would hope that we don't wait till this expiration date or life of the roof date to think of these alternatives. And I do think, not to add to Alan's already very busy schedule, but somehow we do keep up because there are so many advances going on in roofing right now. I mean, just many. There's solar shingles, there's soy paint, et cetera, et cetera. The next is our consideration of shingles. I don't know what kind of roof you've had, but my roof's going on 41 years right now, so I live in the same community you do, so I wonder what's happening to the life of shingles on some of these projects. But anyway, I'd like us to start thinking about alternatives to shingles, and you can do many metal roofing on sloped roofs. And we have plenty of people within the county who have the experience to do it, and that too is growing. 10 years ago, it wasn't something that could be done with ease other than a barred roof where there are no gutters or anything, but that's not the case anymore. Metal roofings, as you've already stated, can last up to 50 years, and that's an extremely good alternative for the county to be thinking about, because as Mr. Rosales was getting to, the constant is the labor. So it's a better investment for us with taxpayer money to put on a roof that will have a longer life, because then we are not repeating the costs of the labor. And so I hope that as this committee moves forward on these issues, that you will put that in the list of things that you will be thinking about. And we have plenty of expertise in this community to solve any of those aspects, and we can look at what MTD has done. MTD has painted their flat roofs with soy paint, so they're white now and they're much more energy efficient. So lots of alternatives.
One last comment on that, if I may. I've been involved with different roofing projects. I know school systems that have. A lot of the things that we brought to the table, I've asked Josh to, get some more background knowledge and pass it on, because again, Alan's got a busy schedule and with his staff, not saying he won't look at it, but if the more time we take away to do these things, you got to remember there's other things not being done, and then we always seem to want to put a little bit more here and there. I think they need to be looked at, but as committee members and the research that goes into it, if we can do some of that legwork, it would be very helpful. But also, Patsy, being a lay person is easy to sit back. They come out with battery cars, they come out with a lot of things. But just because someone says it may last 50 years or it's the next best thing since wheat bread, don't always buy into it, because with everything, there is problems. And believe you me, when you're talking about green roofs, metal roofs, I've looked at a lot of those avenues. You have possible water leakage. I was just thinking when Josh was talking about the green roof, if I have all my heating and air conditioning up on the roof, I got to make sure that stuff stays away because it'll get sucked in. I mean, and you keep adding to the cost. And the contractor, the bottom line with any contractor in my book, you hire them to do the job, you spec it out with your engineers. Once they're gone, it's your puppy. And we got to have the staff that can maintain that. So when I look at the picture, it's the whole picture, not just because somebody says it's 50 years or so. Josh?
I just want to add to that. I agree with you, and I hear what you're saying, and yes, it will take maintenance, and it will take some retraining, but it does, my fear, it's not going to limit what I want to do, that somebody may have to learn something new to do their job. My time at IDOT, we were trying to update from old IBM mainframe computers to a Windows operating system, and you can't believe the fight I had from 20 people who'd been there 20 years and didn't want to update their computers. We finally had to do it, and once they'd done it for 2 weeks, they were just fine, and they realized how nice it was. It's not an exact example, but I'm not afraid for people to have to learn something new.
No, it helps. And there's windows out there. I didn't know that. Rosales? There's no motion. This is just discussion. So we need to move on. Next is the funding model. Ms. Busey, please.
This is just to give you an idea of capital funding for just the roofs, based on Alan's spreadsheet. If you look at about the fourth column where it says continual annual reserve if fully funded, this is how much we would set aside each year for future replacement, and should have been setting aside each year for future replacement for each of these roofs over the lives of the roofs. And you can see that the total that would be required for that is $186,494 per year. The colors correlate to which funds are available to pay for these various roofs. So we have a courts construction fund that has money left in it that can be used for this roof. So I placed the courthouse roof there because I believe the money that's left in courts construction, the board has indicated they want dedicated to future repair maintenance issues for the courthouse. The majority of our buildings would be paid for through the general corporate fund, which are the yellow Highway would pay for its own buildings, and the nursing home, which you can barely tell is highlighted at the bottom of the first page, would also pay for its own future building replacement costs. So you can see that for each fund, if we were regularly funding this, it would be about $27,000 for the courthouse, about $107,000 for general corporate, 18 for highway, and 34 to 35,000 for the nursing home. However, because we haven't funded this, if we were to start this next year, taking the life that is left for each of these respective roofs and fully funding an annual reserve so that we have the money in hand in the year in which the roof needs to be replaced, it would require $776,762 total. Again, the courthouse is at $68,269. General corporate is $624,711. And that's because general corporate fund has responsibility for a couple roofs that need to be replaced in the next couple of years. So a $50,000 roof we got to put in 2015 takes $25,000 next year and $25,000 in 2015. I gave you a 5-year picture so you could see next year is definitely the worst because we have not been doing this, and every year after that it goes down. And this is just one perspective. In working on this, I think initially we might have to say that we're not going to do initial reserve funding for anything that is more than 20 years out at this point, to just bring those numbers down to something to sort of equalize the first 5 years until we get in sync with doing this regularly. We've talked about this at facilities over the past several years, and my hope is that providing you with a model like this, I'm hoping that this committee will decide that there needs to be a starting point and recommend to the Finance Committee that even if it's only the roofs, we need to be starting to set aside at least this much money from the general corporate fund to the capital fund for facilities, so that we begin building a balance from which we can operate.
If we do fund these and start building this fund, even if it's not quite at the level listed here, and it's geared towards roofs, if we come along and a boiler blows in 4 years and we got to come up with 150,000, can we pull money out of this fund for things other than roofs?
They would the facilities capital is for anything.
Okay.
We would only be starting the reserve based on roofs. Hopefully, eventually, we're budgeting the reserve based on all the building maintenance needs. But yes, you certainly could do that. And we would just track it so you would know where we took a dip and how we are going to
Okay.
replenish it.
And if the money comes in from like the courthouse fund into this fund, does that money have to be kept separate and made sure it strictly goes to any maintenance on courthouse?
I would not put the money for the courthouse in the
Okay.
capital
They'll be
facilities
kept
fund.
as 3
It
separate
would be
funds.
only for the general corporate fund
Okay.
projects. The
Okay.
other projects would be paid out of those funds.
Okay, thank you. And kind of one other thing, if I may, we replace roofs as needed, not it's 30 years, we're replacing it whether it needs it or not, right? Okay, thank you. That's all, thank you.
Liz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kind of going with Mr. Hartke's question, in the past, let's say 2011, when we replaced or added the 202 Art Bartel, or actually before that, probably Ilias, we did it in 2011. How did we pay for those things at that point in time with not really having a fund?
We paid for the Ilias roof with Ilias's rent. Their rent is $400,000 a year, and when they paid their rent for, I believe it was fiscal year 2012, which we received in 2010, it was specified that that money was being set aside for the roof on that facility. And of course, Art Bartel was paid for with a bond issue.
So ultimately, we've just been very lucky that nothing has come and hit us very hard, and we've been able to basically take everything up to this point.
Well, and I think we've done a lot of patching, too.
If I may, and correct me, Alan, on this, when we did the bell tower and they were doing some of that adjoining roofing there, it ended up, because I remember there was some bad roofing, but it was within the funding we had to go ahead and fix some of it around that area.
Yeah, that is correct. On the courthouse, which was on my spreadsheet
right.
at 2009, when we tore off the north face of the courthouse for the tower, the the existing shingles could not be matched, and there was funds available, so we went ahead and completed the other 3 sides of it.
And I just want to stress that, you know, in any building, and we've seen it on the news for Marion County and everything, all those other green initiatives are nice if we can get the funds and get to it. But this county has lacked in a plan to address the building needs, and we always seem to have funds for other things as they pop up, but we've got to get serious about it, dedicate some money to it, and go with a plan. And Alan is working diligently. This is the first step. The other step will be the heating and air conditioning systems, which are getting older, along with the roofs. And there's a lot of new technology out there, but I'm here to tell you that new technology will drive you up the wall, because you really got to train your people. And then after that, we have windows, doors. I mean, that's where you're going to save your money. Well, they do in my house because I keep them shut. But other than that, that's where we need to be looking. And please be mindful, too, when we talk about our own places, we're not talking about buildings that are used by multiple people 24/7 and everything else. You know, I used to have board members that told me when I needed a vehicle, well, mine's got 100,000 miles. And I said, yeah, but you don't haul gravel and dirt. So you got to look at outside of your world sometimes and see what he's facing, and just the upkeep of things and the manpower to do such things. Rosales?
I just don't want to go back to where we were before, where we overspent on the heating and cooling system at the nursing home because there were no future plans in place to analyze and assess what we actually needed and to what we actually got. And I believe that there was some work orders put in place, and then when everything was constructed and everything was built, there were sections of the building that were still cold because the calculations per square footage, and I don't remember, this has been 4 years ago, were not correct. And then we had to spend double. So we're spending double. The money that we spent last year on the downtown jail is because there were no reserves. So I think it is advantageous for us to start saving for that rainy day when a boiler breaks or a roof begins to collapse or there's a thunderstorm and high winds and all of a sudden we have 2 or 3 roofs that need to be repaired, and not by this deadline, but there needs to be some funds there available so that we could take care of our buildings. We can't let them go into neglect like the downtown jail was when we started, looking at building a new one or repairing the old or what we were going to do with the inmates that we had. So I think that definitely I would support this, and definitely I think we should move forward. If not just the roofs, the other systems within the buildings.
I really appreciate this idea, like we talked about. It's at least you're getting a start here with the budget. I think we know that the actual maintenance and cost of the buildings is going to be higher than this, and maybe you're afraid you're just going to shock the county board into understanding, because the U of I did this. I think they had $3 billion worth of maintenance that they had to do, and no one would listen to them, and they created a new fee. But should we try to tell them that, hey, we want to start the roofing fund, but also there's got to be a portion also that should go toward maintenance, some, 20% above what this number is? Because it has to be done too. They have to understand that this, not just a fund for repair of the building, or the roofing, but.
Well, Jim, and again, I'm stressing we're looking at that, but it's like everything in life. Everybody wants everything now. We're starting where we can. Alan will get us that information. We'll go back to Deb, and then it'll go on to finance. But I just also, on Mr. Rosales on that nursing home, that was a big issue, and I was involved with Mr. Beckett and some other people on that litigation of that. Some of your facts are right, but some of them are wrong. You got to remember that building was designed and engineered by a group of people. They're the ones that told us what we needed. There was going to be free cooling, which it ended up not being free cooling. And then when the system was put in place, there was some defects because, again, everybody wanted top of the line, and they weren't doing the job they needed to do, and they had to be modified, and that's where the cost overruns come in. And just what Jim's saying, And I go back to what Patsy said, when you get something for 50 years, you can get a boiler with a 30-year warranty on it, but it could fail in 2 years because of mechanical failure. Yes, there's a warranty, and yes, you can go after it, but as we all know in this room, there's warranties on everything. We had a warranty on that big spire that was on the courthouse thing, and look how long it took to get that rectified. I just want everybody to be cognizant that warranties are fine, but you still got to go after them, and you still got to have the staff to maintain what we have. If we don't have, you can put the best thing in place, and if they're not greasing it, they're not oiling it, and we don't give them the time to do so because we got them writing 100 reports a month, we're going to fail. So that's my comment on that.
Here since the 80s. Was there a settlement within that mistake that was made? I don't know who actually made it, but were there some funds retrieved from that erroneous mistake that was made?
Yeah, the county retrieved 1.2 million from the architect engineer, and also retrieved in the neighborhood of about 700,000 to 800,000 from the contractors.
And that didn't go back into the capital improvement plan?
No, it did not.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, a couple of points that maybe will help prioritize what Alan looks at next. Besides urging the use and thinking about green, I've also urged that we capture when grants are available, and grants are available at DCEO. And one of the things that in the past history has been that the county has not put themselves in a position of being prepared to take advantage of that money or when that money becomes available. So I would think it would be propitious to look at what DCEO is funding in the way of grants now and in the past history, and start looking at those particular aspects within the county in relationship to analyzing our needs, so we can think about, can we start using some of the state monies? I know when I was running for county board and sitting and listening to many sessions, I sat through the sessions when the county, well, I want to say blew the opportunity of getting some state funding on the replacement of the chiller at the jail, which was a tremendous disadvantage to the county budget and the taxpayers. And the county missed the opportunity of ARRA money on doing the Bartell Stormwater project because they didn't step forward, and that was huge grant money. And so I would really like to see us start positioning ourselves and what we know is coming up for the county, what our needs are, so that we can look at that and say, you know, grant money is coming down the line. We know there's a high percentage chance of grant money might be coming down the line to do A, B, D, and F or whatever, and that we can move forward and take advantage of it. That may pop these things up above something else, but if it's matching funds and grant money, I would think that would be in the best interest of the county.
If I may, Patsy, some of that may be true. I can't go back and research all that, but I will say this on grant money. I think they've done an excellent job where they can in all departments. Again, I think when you say things, I take it that, you know, you've got the U of I where they may have a Department of Grant Seekers. We have limited staff that have time to do some of that and can do that. It takes time, and also if we're going to be using matching funds or whatever, time sometimes is of the essence, and you have deadlines. And I know in the past I've applied for grants, and just because someone said I could have got them, I never got a response. And for many reasons, whether it be a kids foundation or what, it's a good avenue. We've talked about it. We've put it in there. If you want to bring it up every meeting, that's fine. But I mean, we know it's there. They're looking at it. It's not something we've gone off. And I just think sometimes, though, we should give the benefit of doubt to the staff. I think they're really trying. We're not going to get every grant. It's just the name of the game. And so with that said, I mean, I know Alan's looked at it. I know we'll try. He got some grants, he got grants for lighting, he got grants for some other things in this building, and, you know, we ought to be grateful for what we get, not what we didn't get. Josh?
Patsy, you say that there are groups that do free grant writing for public institutions like us. Can you please send me contact information on those groups, and I would be happy, Mike, if you would, send me contact information on them, and I'd be happy to contact them about at least being on board with us, reserve some of their hours, so that when something comes up and we can write a grant and try to apply for it, you know, let's
And
put
let
it
me
into
just-
action.
Josh, let me just stress right there, when you do that, keep the department head involved also, because they're the ones that are gonna have the information, and make sure that they have the time to do so. Mr. Richards?
As I said last month, as part of the Illinois Association of County Board Members partnership with DCEO for Illinois Energy Now, the Illinois Association of County Board Members does free grant writing because we're a member institution. So theoretically, now, the money does run out for this, but theoretically, what would happen ideally would be, we could get Carol Kulik, who used to run the program at DCEO, to work with us and Illinois Association of County Board Members to write this grant. Then theoretically, we turn it in. If we're accepted, we get 100% match on some of these things. So for the energy efficiency things, and most anything you replace is more energy efficient, so could qualify. Any of that, we should be able to get that grant written for free for this state program. It would be messier if we think there's some federal programs that we think we'd be eligible for, but for this specific state program, we can get help getting that grant written. They have somebody who used to run the program at DCEO who does that for the Illinois Association of County Board Members.
Well, like Josh said, either get that information to him or Deb or Alan directly, email them, get it to them, and then they can run with the ball and see what's out there.
Will do.
Thank you. Any other questions?
One more here.
Well, hang on, let me look around the room, Mr. Rosales.
I'm just giving
Okay,
you a
Mr.
verbal
Rosales.
alert, just in case you're nearsighted. Could we get RPC, and perhaps through RPC, which they do a lot of grant writing, and I know that Susan Echeverria has indicated that they could hire somebody specifically, either three-quarter time or half-time, something that is a lot cheaper for us to hire specifically an individual that would work with various departments to solicit some of these state grants or federal funding grants that are available out there. Wouldn't it in the long run come out a lot cheaper than to hire a staff within your department that you would have to pay retirement and health and benefits, that just to pay them a salary and hire them on a part-time basis?
I would say let's take them off of LMRP and put them on grant writing. How would that sound?
Take who?
RPC, we have a contract with them now, they're doing certain things.
Right,
We'll
and I
just pull 'em
remember
off of
that.
some of that.
I remember that the board shot it down. They didn't
But
want
see,
to
that's,
spend that money.
Rosales, that's the thing, everybody wants it all, but you gotta cut somewhere. There's not an unlimited pool of funds to do all this,
Oh,
so
we could
I'd be
do-
willing to compromise and do that.
We could do it on a percentage basis. For whatever $100,000 that you bring in, you get 20% out of every grant that comes in. I'm
don't
pretty
think
sure
that's
they would be very highly motivated.
They call that a kickback.
They would be highly motivated to get grant money to come in.
Any other questions, concerns? Do we need a motion on this, Deb, or some type of formulation? It's just discussion?
Only, however, we'd ask this committee to consider if at some point, before the budget process resolution is adopted in May, and hopefully
They're not using this.
indicating the finance, like in the March or April
I
timeframe.
mentioned that last time.
Lazy. I mean, 60 hours is not a lot, but still, stretch it out.
Do you think it's possible at this
They're
point just
seasonal.
to pass this on so they know we're looking at it? Or they'll get it anyway, won't they, in their packets? And then we'll put it on the agenda again and sort of relook at it and come up with something to pass on to finance?
From my perspective, the appropriate thing to do is maybe we put this on your agenda for March, and if you would like to make a motion to recommend to finance that a certain dollar amount be designated in the fiscal 2014 budget of new money for capital facilities. So I think that recommendation should come from you, and if finance gets it in March, they can then build it into the budget process parameters that will be defined for the 2014 budget.
So I would say everybody on this committee, when you take this home, look at it closely, look at the dates, look at the money, and remember their estimates. And we're talking about roofing based on those estimates, but that's not to say when we spec it out or we go to look that other alternatives will not be looked at. This is just trying to get a funding model set up. So with that, we'll have it back on the agenda, and I'll look for Mr. Kibler to come in with a motion at that time. So moving on. Downtown jail update.
On page 10 of the agenda, you'll see that I've updated the information I gave you last month, and all of the projects have been completed at the Sheriff's Office Correctional Facilities. I did receive an email from Captain Jones that after the last big deluge of rain we had, there were no more apparent leaks in the building. Doesn't mean we've got every one of them, but we've definitely helped it quite a bit. Okay, on the next page, has to bring back to the committee the information of the items that were looked at but were not funded or completed last year, and that is what's shown on page 11. We did not finish all the painting that we would like to have done. We still have 3 cell blocks on the east side. And we did not finish the shower stall sheeting on the east side. Knowing that there was a limited amount of funds, it was, after discussing with the sheriff and the correctional officers, we focused trying to get 1/2 of the cell blocks completed, so which is what we did. So we still have more to do on the east side. We also looked at trying to increase the amount of natural daylight into the day rooms, which was not funded. And we also looked at indoor recreation area floor tile replacement. It was old, cracked, missing tiles. We have been just patching right now, just trying to make it a little bit better, but we're using new tile mixing with old, and it still needs a real floor put into it if it's going to stay there for a long time.
And I got a couple of questions, but any committee members have any questions?
I just had a comment. I was down at the downtown jail on the day they were painting, and it looks much nicer where it's painted. It makes it no longer look so much like a dungeon, a literal dungeon. Also, the daylight in the day rooms and the floor tiles in the recreation room, I saw both of those issues. The floor tiles definitely, because that makes it virtually unusable, because then they can rip up the old tiles and throw them at each other and things like that. So we have to do that, and we have to have recreational area. And they are, the interesting story of why they once had windows, but somebody broke out in the 80s, and that ended the window situation. If we could, I think it would behoove us to have a better population if we could find a way to find more daylight. So I would support both of those.
My questions would be, Alan, down here on the locks, the security stuff, that's ongoing? Installation continues, or it is complete?
We have purchased all the locks. We
Okay.
are retrofitting them ourselves as we have time and as needed.
Okay.
So they have
And
been
then-
purchased. We have them. All the expenses that were approved have been
Been
spent.
spent. So then on the next page, where Josh just spoke about that, is there any, I mean, my guess would say the shower stall sheeting is probably number 1 that needs done, and then the floor tile number 2. I mean, the lighting, it's been this long, it'd be nice, but is there any way to prioritize that, and maybe if Deb finds some more money, or we get some money back off of Horalis's numbers, that we can use it somewhere?
Well,
But I mean, could you find out from the sheriff what he'd like?
absolutely. I would be
Okay.
happy to talk with the sheriff again and his.
Yeah. No. No. Anything else? Any other questions on that? Any concerns? What's this here? You got courthouse exterior painting?
Let's just call that courthouse exterior. Okay, just delete the painting. That's just information for the committee to remind them that there are funds budgeted from the courthouse project for, we had planned on tuck pointing and waterproofing the exterior of the courthouse is funded for this year. In 2003 was when the addition was built, 10 years ago, and it's time to look at that section of the building. And in 2009, 9 or 10, we finished the restoration of the existing courthouse with the stone replacement, and of course, the clock tower. And I'm going, this spring, as probably next month, as soon as we finish the weather, we'll take a good look at the exterior and see if we really want to do that this year. Maybe we want to hold the funds for another year if it's holding up pretty good. But it's either this year or next. We are planning to put out a bid and try to keep the courthouse from becoming in as bad a shape as it was before we started it, the last project. So I will make a recommendation or have the information available, hopefully at the next committee meeting, for whether we're going to put this bid out this year or not.
Or I'd say at least by May, because with the weather, you never know, and get out there and get a good look at it. Is that okay with everybody? Sounds good. Anybody else got any questions about it? Geraldo? Oh,
And I don't know if it's inappropriate or should we be following the agenda?
well, we're gonna follow the agenda, so can you hold your thought, please? Thank you.
Sure, I'll do that
Okay.
for you.
Don't like to get off track. So have we got other business? Anybody have any other business? Now, Geraldo.
Yes.
Go
thank
ahead,
you
sir.
for acknowledging me. I love you for that. Page 5, line 31 through 34. Ms. Petrie stated that the East Central Illinois Economic Development District provides Champaign County with about 60 hours of free labor annually so that we could use for research and grant writing. Deb, do you want to address that? Who would coordinate that with them? Would it be our illustrious chair, Stan, or would it be Rocket in conjunction with Stan and you? Or how would we take advantage of that money that's available as stated on page 5, line 31 through 34?
That, I did speak with the Cam Moore from RPC after the last meeting, and that is true. It's for anything in Champaign County, so it's not specific only to grant writing for the Champaign County Board, because it is the East Central Illinois Economic Development District. So I suppose we could ask for assistance if we find a grant that we would like to pursue. I don't know that we necessarily want to use that 60 hours to have someone looking for grants that might be appropriate for us. But if we found one, I think we could ask for assistance in writing it.
But I believe Rocket says that there is federal monies coming in through the state of Illinois that's available now that we're not tapping into. This is there, right, Rocket?
We need a specific project, though, to
Right.
write up into. It's like we have to pick a project we're gonna do, see that it fits certain parameters of environmental efficiency or whatever, and then we have to write a grant for that project to apply to get the money to do towards that specific project.
So this is what I've seen. This is not a wish list then, what I've seen on page 10 and 11?
But Geraldo, I think what Josh is trying to tell you, does roofing fall under some of the grants? No. Roofing is not an energy factor at this point. It could be.
Has
under
anybody,
certain parameters,
has
but-
anybody taken a look at the grant, what the
Yeah.
specifics of
But-
it are?
But Geraldo, I think what they're telling you is, unless we know we're doing a specific item at this point in time, you're chasing your tail because you're not gonna get a grant. Now, if Alan said, yes, I wanna upgrade all the lighting at the old nursing home for Elias, then that's a specific item. We would ask this person to go out and research if there's any lighting or anything like that that would fall in this grant area, then we would try to tap into that. Michael, with his federal funds, again, give us the information, let us look at it, and then we will go through it through there. And as Deb said, if this lady, and there again, it's interpretation, if she's serving all of Champaign County, we don't want to be the one always saying, hey, we need it, we want it. Okay, well, but there's a lot of other people with needs also. But let's make sure we have a project that fits whatever parameters that we may be looking at. And right now, there's none on the drawing board that I'm aware of other than roofing. Now, heating systems, once Alan gets a chance to review those, we will gladly look for that money.
Well, I think Harkey was sort of touching upon that several meetings ago when he says energy efficient lighting. And we could, change all the lighting fixtures or all the lighting systems within all of our buildings to make them much more efficient and save a lot more money on an annual basis.
And as I stated a few minutes ago, Alan did get us a grant and did that in here, but you only get so much grant money, and you have to do specific work with that grant money. And by the time you get it, you may think you're gonna do all that, but you also have the laborers that gotta install it. And then again, Allen's staff has to be trained that if they ever have to go back in without calling an outside electrician to keep that stuff updated, it's not just a simple matter of plugging in a wire. So I think they are looking at it, and they are doing it, and they're doing their best. But if people have specific things they want to give us, give it to us. I mean, it shouldn't be a secret if you know about it, but we don't know about it, so how are we going to get at it? And with that said, anything else?
Well, we have experts in that field that have worked for the county, and I think they should be looking into those avenues and reporting back to this board or this committee.
And I do think there is a lot of that in my estimation going on, we just don't see it. Yes, Josh?
I intend on doing the legwork myself to look for some of these. Thank you.
And we appreciate that because we enjoy that free labor. Anything else? I don't really have a report. I just want to say thanks again for everybody that comes out. I appreciate that and all the participation. I truly enjoy facilities because I've always liked tinkering with things. I used to tear my sister's dolls apart and put them back together, the old Barbies with the pull strings. But with that, I just hope everybody enjoys it and that you look at it sensibly and don't come in with the attitude, well, we ought to be doing more because we're limited. I mean, we all go home. I mean, I know Rosales' kids would probably like to go to Monocle's every night, but I know him, he's gonna say no, and the same here, no is gonna come across this table.
I'm an
So
empty
with that,
I'm an empty nester. They're all gone.
I'm gonna not ask for a motion. I think that it's fine that if we're all in consensus, I'm gonna call this meeting adjourned. Any objections? Thank you.